Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ed Fields here. I had to do some technical stuff, with the headphones. It's very high tech stuff, and most people would understand it. It's called putting in the plug. Most people don't understand that. And you think I'm joking, Kendrick. A lot of times things aren't working. What do? It's the plug. The plug isn't in. Either the plug or the switch. You ever notice that?
Or you just kind of unplug it, give it 10 seconds, plug it back
right.
in.
But most people don't even know the plug out. Okay. Anyway, what's happening? I have Erica Wells-Cox with us this afternoon. Rogan is off. I don't know her whereabouts. We'll talk about a couple of things. Candy's here with us tonight. Are you talking anything about Valentine's? Is it Valentine's related?
Of course it is.
Okay, well, because I want to talk about that nonsense as well.
Yes.
What's the matter, Erica?
Her mic.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, she's not officially on.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Okay,
sorry.
that's when you're not officially on. You talk in the background. It's a
okay.
radio thing. Most people would know about
Okay.
it. Okay, all right, all right. So Erica Wells-Cox, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to, and Kendrick says I'm too open.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
we've established this. Yes.
But I think there's a degree of like non-serial killer suppression that if you're open,
Yeah.
see, like him, you don't know where he's coming
It's
from.
the quiet one.
Okay, yeah, okay. You don't know what he's doing at night. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Okay, all right. There's a lot of smiling, a lot of, but silence. So I feel that openness. Listen. If I'm getting paid to do this job, why not, tax the people with my problems? So I don't,
Sure.
what is there to it? So, but there's a couple of things that are annoying me. But what I'm trying to do is to not let other things annoy me, and try to control them from my angle.
Okay. You don't want to take them on.
Well, I don't want to be annoyed by things that don't have to annoy me.
Good.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a good place to start, yeah.
There's a lot, I don't know if I told you this. I used to watch a lot of sports.
Yes, you mentioned
I told you about
this,
that. I'm
yes.
finished with that now.
Right.
I'm finished with politics.
Okay.
There's a lot of idiocy going on that I have no control of, and will never have control of it. Okay? It's like, let me see. It would be like, okay, you decide not to be a priest, right? If you decide you're not going to be a priest.
Right.
Well, if you're not going to be a priest, you have no control over the priest world.
Correct.
If you're a priest, you can maybe, go to the synod or whatever they do.
You can still take an interest, though.
Me?
Well,
Not being a priest, take an interest?
Well, to your point.
But why would I want to do that? That's the question I'm asking myself.
No, you don't have to be annoyed. You don't have to completely remove yourself from something. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
I think it does, Erica.
Well, that's you. I think therein lies your problem.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you are not a priest, I'm using a priest as an example.
Right.
You decided that you would not go to the seminary and, study scripture and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And there are things like you don't like the way they wear their robes. Well, why are you concerned about that? Why is that in your life?
No, I think at that example, I agree with you. Why be bothered? Why let that irritate you?
But there's some people who do. There are people who let other things like that bother them on a daily basis.
Right.
I figure that these football players, they don't know me. I don't know them. I don't know the referee. I don't know why I would call the referee stinking. I don't know what he's into. Okay? You know what I mean? So why bother myself with that?
Yeah.
Because it's less pressure.
Unnecessary stress.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now,
Let it
politics
go.
is a little different in that it has impact on our lives.
Yes.
Okay? So this is a dilemma for me because I see things that impact me and I feel like I have zero control over them. And I think that's how a lot of people are feeling.
Right. But I think we do have some control.
What? What control do we have?
Well,
Revolution?
Well, that's to the extreme.
Okay.
But
Talking?
we have the power to vote. We have the power to do stuff in our own community. I'm not.
Well, that's not the same thing. I agree with you. We have power to do things in our community. We do have that. But that doesn't control, say, like the economy.
Well, no.
That controls your immediate environs.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, you have to take responsibility to try and elect the people you think will do a good job of the economy. That's what it's about, right?
Do you think, let's go medieval.
Okay.
Or even further back, okay? When they didn't have the vote. When they had the guy who would come by on the pyramid and say, every Thursday I'm coming to get a virgin, and I'm bringing my army to get her, and it might be your child, Kendrick. You have no control. They come, they get it. If you don't give them the daughter, they kill you and everyone else. So I'm saying, have we advanced? You see, have we advanced much further than that?
Yes, we have.
We have? Okay.
I believe we have.
Well, I mean, and we may well have done so. I'm just trying to figure out how much so. Because when you think of what's going, I think we're in a little pocket where we're doing okay. But think about the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, you can make a case for that. But, it also depends on what side of the political divide you're on. You could be feeling this is not working out. This is not what I signed up for. I'm very unhappy with the state of affairs. But another person might think completely different.
And I would tend to agree with you, except that I will say to you, as in the pyramid days, it's always a small circle. No matter where you go, it's a small circle.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So the question I'm saying is, when you look at the fact that out of, 7 billion people now?
More. But
probably at least 5 billion. At least 5. Every day, you know what they do? They look for food. That's what they do every day.
Right. That's
They get up. I mean, at least in India, where they have 1.4 billion, at least 1 billion of them doing that. They get up in the morning. They try to figure out, where am I going to get food? They do that all day until they go to sleep, and then they wake up again, and then they try to figure out how to get food.
Yeah.
And by the way, the food isn't like steak and lobster.
Right. So
it's like some grain.
We're in a relatively good position.
We're in a relatively good position, but we can slip far behind. We can slip, man, big time.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's a lot of people in this country who are looking to where they can get food.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
The only thing is we're also cluttered with other things like keeping the light on.
Right.
Because back in the big India, they ain't fooling with no light like that.
Right. I mean, I think it's a reality that a lot more people than you think are struggling.
Here.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
In a major way. And it's not about, I think there's this perception of, oh, well, you're not paying your light bill because you're spending your money on other things. No,
you don't because you don't have a job.
Right. You don't have a job, or, you're in a family where someone has lost a job and things are just falling apart.
I'll give you an example.
It's sad.
There's a neighborhood. I'm not going to call the name of the neighborhood because I don't wish to embarrass the folks living there, because there's a great deal of pride that goes with this stuff as well.
Okay.
But you could tell this neighborhood, I think way back, would have been primarily made up of expats.
Okay.
And then the Bahamian middle class moved into those neighborhoods, and they were sustaining those homes because they had good jobs, good like banking jobs in the financial services sector and trust companies, etc. Those things are gone now. And if you go there, I'm going to tell it to you after the show. You can see from the condition of the homes.
Yeah, you can see that
how this has impacted them
in a number of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And like you said, it's not good to say it on the air, but I can think of a couple where I remember as a child, being very impressed with the homes and the neighborhoods.
Pristine,
and now you drive through, and you can tell the economic impact.
Right. And so, we go to this issue of how the thing is managed, how this environment is managed. Because obviously there are pockets of well-managed environments in this country which are managing to do things to keep up with the changes and the changes in economic conditions, so that things still look okay or they do okay. But I just seem to, I feel, and I know there are people out there listening, and I know that they're going to think this is political. This is theoretical. This is not political. This is philosophical. This is not political. I refuse to be political, but there is politics in the sense that we are in a two-party system. So yes, if I say that I disagree with a particular philosophy, then someone's going to see that as making a political statement. Mm-hmm. But I'm not against the person. I'm not into like.
It's not personal.
No.
Right.
Okay. It's math for me. You do your math one way, I do my math one way, and we come up with different answers. And the question is, what's the right answer? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. So I just feel as if there's a lot of tension. I think there's a lot of people trying to figure it out because the system has so locked us down that we can't figure out how to maneuver through it. The other thing, I'll tell you another thing that's been bothering me. Well, it's been bothering me for 40 plus years. And that is the view of ourselves, how we present ourselves to others. Mm-hmm. Now, there are certain what I would call almost sacred things. Okay? One of those things, for instance, would be Parliament. Okay? We have a parliament that I think they say our parliamentary democracy is 300 and something years old. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long all those buildings are, because it looks like they still 300 years. They no upgrade. And I was, in that area because we're doing some upgrades, some people I'm associated with. And I want to come up with the right word, because although there may be many words, but certainly, boy, I don't know the word to come up with. It was really, really disheartening. Mm-hmm. It was embarrassing. It was anger. It made me angry that our parliament buildings and the immediate environs, is someone in charge of that?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know.
Someone cannot be in charge of that.
Someone has to be.
There is, maybe not now because I had someone clean it up. I did have someone clean it up.
Right, but it's certainly not your group's responsibility.
No. So let me tell you what's happening in the Parliament Square. There are 3 buildings. There is a Queen Victoria statue. Behind the Queen Victoria statue is a planter bed. In front of the building to the west is a planter bed. In front of the building to the east is a planter bed. In front of the building to the west, the planter bed has a green, they have green bollards with a green chain through it. Yep. Two of the bollards, one on each corner, one on the most easterly corner, northeast corner, and one on the most northwesterly corner, they're just broken down on the ground. Mm-hmm. In the middle of that planter bed are 3 compressors for air conditioners that are just sitting on like broken pieces of wood. There's no organization, there's no shielding, there's nothing. There's pipe running all about the place.
This would be the planter that's
facing right in front of the House of Assembly.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. In the planter bed in the back of the Queen Victoria statue, which is in front of the Senate, there's a street lamp that's just on the ground. There are a disheveled array of, like someone just came every day and just put a different plant. Okay? Mm-hmm. And the one in the planter bed to the east, it is full of spikes where the person who is charged with putting up the wooden things with the pictures,
right?
They just leave those spikes in the ground. Rebar. Mm-hmm. They're still there because we just weeded it out and they're still there. We'll have to move those. There's also where they were putting lights to highlight these things. The wire, I have the pictures, so if they say no, I have the pictures. The wires that they had hooked up to another pole are just laying on the ground with probably I think it's a 1 to 2 foot big what do you call it? Light, spotlight. Just laying on the ground.
Like what they use at Junkanoo. Or
No, but it's but square.
okay.
Laying on the ground in the walkway. By the way, the walkway is strewn with broken makeshift bollards. Just pieces of concrete. Just laying there.
So this is the pathway.
This is the
that
pathway. Yeah. And all around there, these random bollards are just sitting there. And I'm saying to myself, do I have a different pair of shades on? Does anyone see this? And by the way, I am not even going to see. This is how I want to say. I want to not be political. I am not going to blame one of the louses that are in the House of Assembly, who, by the way, I've never heard anyone, never, not that I hear every time everything they say, anyone in the House of Assembly get up and talk about the condition of the environs of the House of Assembly.
Well, Ed, I think the difference is you care.
Well, that's sad.
Yes,
because
it is.
here's the thing: I don't
It's
even
an
want
indictment.
to. I don't. You know who the indictment on is, though?
Yes.
Who?
Well, it's on the people who are there.
It's on us.
Well, I
yes,
mean, right.
we allowed that. I almost went over the thing. We allowed that to happen. We allow it to happen. You cannot possibly expect, someone. See, you have to understand something, and this is which really puts it in true light. And this is why we're screwed. They are our employees. Get that straight. Now, let me tell you something. You're a managing editor. You have a position of management. You have a position of management. You don't check for what your employees do and see what happened.
Right.
Okay?
That's a reflection on you, and you will pay the consequences.
If you don't supervise your employees,
you gotta.
And I want people to really understand how low I want to bring these positions down to. They are not positions of esteem. They are positions of representation, and they are your employees. And you should stop bowing down to them and worshiping them, because they are your employees. And what you're doing is not supervising them, and you're allowing them to operate in this fashion. That is why those bollards and rocks are there when they march across to the House of Assembly and don't care. Why wires, check it out when you leave here. Wires are hanging from the Adley building, drop cords, and cable are literally hanging from the Adley building, just hanging there, wound up, just hanging.
Right.
This is what we do. So I don't blame the employees anymore.
You're blaming the
bosses.
Right.
Which you don't inspect, don't expect.
Right.
We have zero expectations of these people.
Yeah. I mean, there's little responsibility and virtually no accountability. And that comes from, like you said, the bosses have to demand that.
And we don't, so we go after them on these things. So they're not showing us account. We got to start off the small things. The littlest thing we have to start with.
Well, how you do anything is how you do everything, Ed.
Exactly.
So
my thing is, and by the way, just in case you're wondering, we also have a little game going on down at the Parliament. Each building is painted a different color.
Right.
We have a little thing.
Maybe they're trying to decide which color they should
Well,
go
maybe
with.
it's because we have a D average, and rather than say spell which building it is, we just say pick the pink one, pick the orange one, pick the magenta one. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Wells-Cox. I've calmed. Was I uncalm?
No, you were not uncalm.
Okay.
But it's good. It's good to be open. It's
Yes.
therapeutic. So
Kendrick?
I commend you on your openness.
Kendrick, was that a bad openness?
That was
was a good-
constructive.
okay.
That was very constructive.
I'm trying to tell him he need to open up. Me and you got talks, man. You got issues. We're
Although
gonna try
I'm
to
in the
resolve-
middle with Kendrick, I believe that you should only be open to certain people.
Well, I don't have a problem. No. Let me put it this way. That's fine for you.
What do you mean?
Yes.
But if I
Be
choose
open
to
to
be
certain
open
people.
to, you can now pull this down.
Open with
yeah.
certain people.
I
should
choose
Yeah.
to be open to the general public.
Right, and that's you.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit more in the middle.
Yeah.
Not as extreme as Kendrick.
And the reality is that maybe, just maybe, we'll do a little shift here. Just maybe our lack of openness translates into a lack of being candid and therefore translates into a lack of
You just don't
the
care.
accountability thing that we're talking about.
Right.
Okay?
It can lend that appearance that you don't
Yeah.
care.
Because but except when you be ready to talk, we'll talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
And then we talk bad.
but what does the lack of openness mean, though?
Well, in Kendrick's world, it means that I share too much.
No, you know what I mean? Like, why? I mean, why,
Well, he's just not open. He's just prefers to
I know,
keep
is it a
himself.
fear of
Private.
something?
No,
I
but
don't know.
No,
No,
I'm
it's
going to
his
be...
prerogative.
Kendrick, I'm with you on this, right?
It's his prerogative. I'm
No,
not
I'm
here.
not saying it's not his
But
prerogative.
some people are more
I'm just-
private than others.
Yes.
It doesn't have anything to do with fear.
No.
Like, not a
Well,
lot
there's
of...
some fear.
What? Yeah.
Well,
I mean, just wanting
right.
to keep my thoughts
Can you
to
get a
myself,
fearful?
basically.
So,
Is that what it is? Keeping my thoughts to myself because I don't need anybody to know about them.
Or you don't want anyone to know about them.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's good.
why?
Well,
I'm just
that's-
asking.
No,
I'm
I don't
just
know
asking
why. And
questions.
you know what? Here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to give Kendrick on. If that is what he so chooses, then fine. I'll give him like 1 or 2 whys, and then after that, I move on.
Right.
You
But
know,
because people will ask you, well, why are you so open? So why can't I ask, like, why are you so
well, you
closed?
can ask. No
Right.
one's saying you can't ask.
Yeah, no, I'm
You
saying.
just might not get an answer.
Right. As opposed to the open
Like
guy.
I tried to ask
well,
Matai
I'm
over
open
here
'cause-
how long he been in a certain situation. He clammed right up. We call it clamming. And the clam shell shut, so you can't pry it open.
That's too much
I don't know. I think
information.
sometimes people don't talk because there's a fear of what people might think about their thoughts, or
Yeah.
they'll be judged by whatever it is that they're
people
thinking,
just
or whatever
choose
it
to
is.
share certain information with specific people.
Listen, some people choose to be hermits.
That's true. I
Some
mean,
people try to choose to be socialites. It's just personal choice.
I agree with that. You're not going to be open with every single, or you're open with different things with different people.
See, but Kendrick's point is that Ed is too open. See, now how many people are going to come on the air and give a detailed account of having a wart removed from their face?
Well, what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that?
Nothing is wrong with that.
In fact,
Listen.
let me say something to you.
we
I don't know. Let me show you how to Candy's point now. See, I'm going back and forth. Let me show you how ludicrous it is not to be open. When you go to the hospital and they remove the wart, at least 15 people know. You have to know. Someone's going to know. So why not 10 more people?
No, I'm not saying it's something to hide.
Yeah.
But it just might not be something that everyone might choose to discuss.
I guess maybe they don't want to be thought of as a witch or something because of warts. I don't know.
I
You
guess
know,
I
we-
shouldn't talk about childbirth either then.
No, well, that's a whole. We're getting deep. All right, so we have with us right now. Okay.
I consider believe it or not, I consider myself a private person,
Really?
I do.
And I consider myself to be a recluse.
Yes, I identify
Don't
more
be
of-
shaking. Listen, if you're going to be making moves,
He's talking
get
to
on the air. Huh?
listeners.
What's that?
I just wanted to make sure.
No, I'm recluse. I don't like to be around a bunch of people.
And believe it or
Right,
not,
so
I'm
are
more of
you
an
an-
introvert than
are-
I am an
Or
extrovert.
do you consider yourself an introvert?
I am.
I wouldn't say introverted, but I just prefer a lot of alone time.
Yeah, that's
Yes, I re-energize myself by being by myself.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're shifting.
Yes, we're thrifting.
We're finished with shifting.
Oh shit.
So we have this silly thing. I know that you are going to somehow tie something into this, called, as we call it in the Bahamas, Valentine's. And again, it's just all it is Christmas with a different title.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You think it's that?
It's gift giving
Oh,
It
and
is
gift receiving.
I mean, he's run right out.
Okay? So, and that's fine. If we recognize it as such, that's fine.
Let people
finished
have,
with that now.
let people have their little.
I agree.
If you want, give your sweetie a gift.
No, see, now here's the problem. If you want gift, that isn't really the phrase.
Oh, there's a lot of
There's
pressure.
ramifications. In some instances, not in all, if you don't. There could be Rambos.
Really?
Yeah. Right, Kendrick? Yes, he's acknowledging
And
that.
I know Candy.
I
has
wish we were on
something to say
TV
about that.
because
I mean,
Kendrick would be
what,
like the Penn
about
and Teller. What is it, Penn and Teller?
Valentine's Day.
Yes, if you
So,
could
Candy,
see.
Candy, what do you have on the?
Well,
big
negative
Valentine?
Nancy is bad. We haven't attacked anything lately. Hey,
I try not to attack.
No, not attack. Attack is such a bad
I
word.
try to just analyze.
Analyze, yes. Well, we haven't analyzed much, these things in a little while. Yeah. But no, Valentine's Day is tomorrow. I see people, they a little pressured, man. I got to go out and get this gift. I got to get this card. I mean, people are even trying to get their children and, it's beyond their spouse. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, some people make a big deal for the kids, too.
Right. I mean, I get it, celebration of love and it's become, just like you said,
another commercial.
Just another, like, hecka, I can't say hella commercialized.
Oh, what? You can't say what?
I said hella. Hell?
You can say hell, I think. Heaven, hell, you cannot say
hella.
It's Christian. The thing is this, right? When I was a kid, I have scars about Valentine's. There's scars.
Yeah.
Because I think when I was in...
What
are you laughing at?
I can't wait.
I hope you had some... Do you have some scars? Yeah, see? Good. At least we're in sync.
See?
I can't wait to hear this.
No, do you not have scars?
No, me?
No, you would not have scars. You had nice
No.
breasts and everything. Listen to me. When I was in school, I was say 5 or 7.
5 years old.
Yeah, 7 years old.
Okay.
They did this, you exchange Valentines. I never used to get none.
Lord.
What's with the Lord thing? I'm okay now. I've gotten past it. I'm
Lord.
He's still talking about
Well,
it.
no, but I'm just saying this is the kind of setup we have in the society.
Stays, Erica, the
Okay?
hurt.
You have this setup in the society where some clown is getting 13 Valentines and you're not getting any.
And they're sharing it on social media so you could feel even
No, you
worse.
mean now.
Now.
Well, I didn't have no. Thank God I didn't have no social media back
Look
then.
what I got.
And
Look
then
what
you
he
know what
got
they used to
me.
do?
He loves me more
But you
than
know the
your
teacher
man
did?
loves you.
I don't know. You were in Freeport. You went to Catholic school, right? Oh, and you know what they did? They opened up the box in school.
Yeah.
One for you.
Lord.
One for you.
None for you.
One for you. But you ever watch Charlie Brown?
Zero.
I identify with Charlie Brown. I'm going to get me a Charlie Brown shirt. You know, with the zigzag?
Y'all have a similar
Kendrick.
haircut.
Me and Kendrick. Let's get a Charlie Brown shirt. You're just waiting, trying to get a little Valentine.
Oh, Lord.
And that's the kind of pressure they start on you with these things.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I look around and a lot of men really don't like it. As opposed to women.
Is it because do women reciprocate?
Boy,
do men get Valentines from
I
women?
think they do. I think some women do. Would get their.
So in other words,
their
you're not even
gentleman.
sure. That's what's so bad about it. We're not
Right.
even sure.
No, I agree.
That's bad.
Yes, that's what I agree.
It's not
I
a
don't
part
think
of the
it's
tradition. It's not a part of the
no. I
tradition
think it's
for women
to
give
right.
men.
So it's just.
So you got
It's
guys.
a little messed up.
It is very messed
It's
up.
extremely messy. You got guys out there making $450 a week, and they
Trying
got to
to-
cough up some of that for the big V. These are the days they detest. There are several days in the year
And
they
this is-
detest them.
And that's what I'm saying.
Because you have to have the flowers.
Oh, and you better send them on her work.
Yeah, you have
Job.
to send them.
Because I
yes.
need people to see, oh, my baby loves me.
And I don't know about this particular thing.
I don't like flowers.
And this is the thing that I don't like. Oh, you don't have to get me nothing.
Oh,
Don't-
right. That passive aggressive craziness.
One year, I remember one year, this, I can't
Chap?
remember. I was, no.
Okay.
I was working over yonder.
Okay.
And one lady said to me, she's like, well, what did you get for Valentine's Day? I said, I don't really,
Yeah.
I ain't into Valentine's Day.
Okay,
Didn't get
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Well, child, you won't train him good then.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
It's trained.
So
I was like, okay.
I want to know what Edward does for Valentine's Day.
Cards. No, I
give
don't know.
cards. Listen,
They give cards for everything.
There's a thing. Listen, let me just say this to you. I'm not dealing with people who are willingly doing this or who there's a tradition of doing it, that stuff. But that's probably a very small percentage of people.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There are tons of people who are under pressure. You know what's also really bad? And this goes back to the
pressure.
Charlie Brown feeling, okay? Women.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not getting something at work,
Yeah.
it's a big thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
telling you,
that's
it's a
real
big
thing.
deal.
Because there's some purchasing of own flowers.
Does that happen?
Oh!
Who sending flowers
Big
to
time.
themselves?
So?
Oh!
I
Big
can't
time.
verify that.
It's
I don't know.
Kendrick, Speak to this,
I'm
please.
sure that
Really?
florists
I don't know why all day I'm having to go to Kendrick for confirmation. This is happening. This is happening big time because
Lord.
why? People don't wish to be. It's a sad world. People don't like to feel that they are not one of the masses.
Right. And then that goes to comparisons, right? You're
Right. So
comparing
I'm not
yourself.
getting any flowers. That means, how do we translate that? I'm not loved.
Oh, well, he don't love me like how?
No, don't forget, there is no he.
There's no.
Okay? See, if you have a he, you could just push that off, and we don't do that.
Right.
Okay? The ones I'm talking about is there is no he. And so we bring in a he with the flowers.
Ed is killing me with his gestures, man, and
And
his
I wish-
facial
I wish-
expressions.
I
That's
wish
why
we
I'm
had a
laughing. I
camera.
know y'all think I laugh all the time, but Ed is just—he's hilarious.
It's just,
physical-
wax on.
The
He's
physical.
waxing
Wax
on
off.
and waxing off in the station.
No, but you know that people, this is happening.
Yeah.
Now, this is the sad thing, because we're talking about this very openly. That tomorrow there's going to be some analysis of exactly. If I could see a picture of he, please,
Right. Upset.
because
pissed.
I have not seen any he,
You never
and all of a
talk about
sudden
no
now
he. You got
we
a he.
have a floral arrangement.
Child is my secret admirer.
Okay.
I don't know who he is
Yeah,
yet.
and you don't even know who he is.
No.
It's not funny. Okay. It's sad. It's actually
It is
sad.
sad. It is sad that there's that pressure.
I wish people would
Get over
you know,
it. Just,
yes, not only get over it. It's we tingsy. Let's stop being tingsy and make connections.
All right, we got
know?
to take a break. We're going to go to news. When we come back, our guest today is, we'll do 5 more minutes with you, Candy, is Terneille Burrows,
Okay.
who is running independent for Elizabeth. It's a very courageous thing. Very courageous thing. And we'll talk with her and see how she's doing and why she decided what she did. Take it away. Okay, so we're winding up this thing. Just fun and frivolity. Valentine's Day is tomorrow, so
Valentine's.
happy Valentine's to everyone, because that's critical. And we will now be better off by us saying that to each other.
Yeah.
So,
Celebrate love, not things.
yeah.
Sit
Yeah.
down, make a connection, put down your phone, turn off the TV, have a conversation, because you all ain't doing that no more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if even you go to dinner, you say okay, it's a dinner, it's a date, but turn off the phone.
Turn off the phone.
Leave the phone home.
Leave the phone home.
I
I don't. Yeah.
Everyone's panicking now.
Hey, Kendrick,
I wouldn't panic.
I gone low on that one.
Yeah.
Leave the phone home.
And just remember, this is what I always say to people because they have this excuse. It's ready. They're ready with it. Mm-hmm. Well, if something happens with the children. Well, first of all, you don't have any children, so let's move you off the table. And secondly, the ones who have children, what happened before?
Right.
They will find someone who will either take the child to the hospital or get in touch with you.
Right.
Don't panic. It's not. It's not necessary.
Yeah. We're so connected.
We can't handle being unplugged.
We cannot handle being unplugged.
Yeah.
Because I have that anxiety.
Yeah.
I can't leave. One of us has to have a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
But
to
actually,
be
in reality,
connected.
you don't.
Right. So,
Well, listen, Candy,
let's be less tingsy.
Tingsy, yeah.
And
All
make
right.
connections.
Well, we have to go. Our guest
Yes.
is Terneille Burrows. I was going to do I like to do my little headings. So I had Tenacious Terneille. I was going to go Tenacious Terneille, but I decided I didn't want to give any spelling problems. All right. So we'll be right back with Terneille Burrows right after this. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Wells-Cox. We've gotten our Valentine's discussion out of the way. And guess what? Next year, we'll have the same Valentine's discussion as we will have the Christmas discussion. And what other holidays do we have that are mandatory? The Mother's Day versus the Father's Day. We'll have all those discussions because it's filler. So that's what we do. Anyway, our guest this afternoon is Terneille Burrows. I've known her in her former life as well as Tada. But I don't know if she, isn't, I don't know if this was any reference to that, so we'll just leave that there. And she is the Elizabeth it's Elizabeth. It's not Elizabeth States. Elizabeth
Elizabeth
vie for the
constituency.
Elizabeth constituency. That's still a constituency?
It is. It's
They didn't change
intact. No, they did change it.
Any shifts?
There's some shifts. The
Yeah.
gated communities are now part of another
Yeah,
constituency.
take them out.
We've acquired some of the Fox Hill
Take that in.
constituency.
Yeah.
So
I'm
is
okay
it
with it.
more of a, is it a more consistent socioeconomic group now?
I would say
That's
so,
a very
actually.
lovely way of putting that, Erica.
That was like verbal
a
gymnastics.
consistent socioeconomic group.
But the thing is, because we weren't certain what the whole criteria was in terms of canvassing in the gated communities, I kind of had a hunch and put that off.
Uh-huh.
So we haven't lost any time in
Right,
terms of covering ground.
Right. Well, I once spoke to this lady at Lyford Key about how in the United States, the Republican Party, while the Democrats were focused on winning the presidency, the Republicans were putting governors in the state houses and senators in the state houses so that they could redistrict. And the whole point of redistricting was to win the House of Representatives, which the Republicans control. And the whole strategy was to take socioeconomic groupings and put them together. So in other words, if you had 4 constituencies or 5 constituencies that had a diverse socioeconomic group, chances are that one party, maybe the Democrats, could win more of those seats. So what they did was they took all of one socioeconomic group and put them into one seat, so the Democrats could win that one seat and they could win the other 3. So this is the insidiousness of gerrymandering as we know it. But you don't think it's going to affect you?
No, I think it's fine. I'm going to miss the constituents that have been working along with us so far in those areas that are no longer part of the Elizabeth. But I'm also looking forward to evangelizing a new set of people towards this whole participatory thinking.
Well, see, the thing is, you are going in as an independent, so that kind of move doesn't really impact you because, in theory, your voter doesn't come from any one grouping.
Right.
Because with the FNM, they're going to say that the more well-to-do voter goes with the FNM and the least well, that's what the premise is.
Right.
And of course, black and white. So let's get that off the table as well. So that doesn't impact you because that's not your constituency.
Does that make campaigning, I don't know if the right word is easier, but how, as an independent candidate, how do you approach the whole campaign?
Well, doing the walkabouts is a big majority of the work, and seeing people and being able to introduce myself in person the first time is important. And ultimately, social media is another weapon of greatness in this campaign that we wouldn't have been able to accomplish the reach in terms of people seeing posts or collateral from the campaign without social media. So kind of 2 totally opposite sorts of things that work beautifully together with this campaign.
But I think one of the things Erica was hinting at is, obviously, if you're an FNM candidate or a PLP candidate or a DNA candidate, you're coming with some baggage that may not even be of your doing. The party, if you're a government, you're going to be blamed with the government misdoings. If you're an opposition candidate, you might be dealing with, well, why the opposition? So all these things that come pre-sold. Did you find that the people you approached while you were campaigning had more of an open view toward you?
I think because I'm one of the people and not a party candidate or whatever it is you're alluding to, I was able to steer the conversation along the lines of, what are your expectations in terms of a member of parliament who is beneficial to the community? What are your thoughts on this whole electoral process? And then I get laughs most of the time, like sighs, like this is a bunch of foolishness. It's been this flip-flop back and forth. We're tired of it. We want to change. So that's the rhetoric that I hear. But when it comes down to it, I say, okay, well, what are you willing to do? because voting once every 5 years is fine. But my thinking is I want to be representing a constituency where you either decide that you want to learn to be an activist, an advocate, working with civil society groups on causes you believe in, you volunteer in your community or elsewhere, or if you want to stay behind the scenes, fine, but you got to do something. Donate, send some ice. I don't care what it is. Participate. If a quarter of every constituency were to do that in this country, there would be an impact over time.
Well, you can't, you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, this is what we've been talking about for almost 2 years now.
We the people, we know.
Well, not even just that. I mean, just on this show, because we the people was a different thing about community involvement, et cetera, et
But
cetera.
similar.
But similar. But the biggest thing that I've learned over the last several years is this lack of involvement. Where you go to any party constituency meeting, and you're lucky if you get 25 people there at each party, at each constituency branch meeting. What you're saying about calling people to take up arms, so to speak, and I'm talking about not physical or literal arms, but to become engaged in the process.
Absolutely. The work that those people you talk about that support parties are doing at these meetings and all these caucuses that they have, forget that right now. Let's focus on us doing some work for ourselves. You tell me what you want to see in place and implement it and what programs you want to have going on. Well, help to be the one to start it if you have that capacity. Help to be the one to volunteer if you have that capacity. Don't sit back on the sidelines, complain, and then look to me to say, what are you going to do for me? I'm not going to do for you. I'm going to help us to do for each other.
Right.
Do you think that, based on the conversations that you've had, you raise an interesting point. You said you're asking them what they expect from a representative. Do you think that people have a clear understanding of what they should be expecting? Do you think that they can articulate? Do you think that they sort of understand sufficiently how the system works?
How the system works, I don't think many people understand. I think we can get a good answer if we ask them to think about, what the role of a member of parliament is. But off the top, a lot of times people think of the stuff that is more not really under the purview of a member of parliament that we've been accustomed to or conditioned towards. Oh, I got to go to my MP for this, that, or the other. No, the MP's role is twofold in my estimation. One, from the parliamentary perspective, to work within the Westminster parliamentary democracy that we have related to legislation and that sort of thing. And the other one is to oversee the constituency, but act as a facilitator between the government works and the constituency to make sure that things are functioning the way that they should be. Everything above and beyond that to me is icing on the cake.
Not only do they not understand, although there's a little bit of a glimmer here. Believe it or not, I think one of the things that has come about as a result of the unrest in the FNM is there's a lot more soul searching with regard to the process. So this whole issue of even understanding, for instance, what the party dynamic was, right? I'll say this very candidly. I think Miss Loretta Butler Turner played her hand in the public domain, okay? And what people realize very quickly is it doesn't matter if you're the most popular person on the planet. If you don't have the votes of the delegates, you're not in. So at least people understand, have a little bit more understanding now, I believe, of this whole process of delegates. They may not know what a delegate is, where they come from, how they get there, but at least they understand it a little bit better. We got a break? We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. I want to talk more about this electoral process. It's the single thing that I think is going to be the savior of this country, is the people of this country getting involved in the process. Otherwise, we'll just be waiting for people to do for us. We'll be right back. Good morning. Good morning. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Wells Cox. Our guest this afternoon is independent candidate Terneille Burrows, a young one, as we say. I call you that every now and again, young one.
Oh, you do, do you?
Yes, I do. And but what's even more, I tell you, this is emblematic, if this is the correct word, of what we talk about in terms of getting people getting involved. Because probably you cannot be any more engaged than to run as an independent candidate. Because You're not going on anyone's coattails. You're not riding on anyone's financial package. You are just putting yourself out there. So I'm going to just ask you a couple of personal questions. Yes, you have been an activist, and I think you've had some success at some of the things that you've lent your name and your time to. Why go into this realm? Especially, and let me just add this, especially knowing the track record of success or lack thereof of independent candidates.
Do you live in Elizabeth?
No, I don't live in Elizabeth. Okay. My Grammy lives there. And someone asked me to run in their constituency when they heard that I was contemplating it. I've lived in literally 7 different constituencies. So
you're not moving? Okay. Okay.
But, we've already had a certain level of success. And to me, the success is not solely in winning. The success is in actually having people come forward and say, look, I want to participate. Some have joined the campaign. Some have launched their own community group where they, host their own events. Some have actually just asked for more information on civil society groups that they might become interested in. So at the end of the day, I'm winning straight through. It's just, for me to have the impact that I can have on a legislative level, I would need to be elected.
Yeah, right. And even that's a challenge in our system because, basically the governing party controls the legislative agenda to some extent.
But just to touch on that, my primary platform points relate to anti-corruption reform, and I've already done some groundwork where in 2014 I emailed the Organization of American States and asked them to conduct an anti-corruption investigation, which they did in September of that year. It yielded 100+ pages of recommendations as to how we can actually strengthen existing anti-corruption laws. So going into Parliament and saying to them, we got to pass these bills. Clearly, it might not be in their interests, but the Bahamian people will have had an opportunity throughout this campaign, throughout my tenure, to learn more about why these bills are important for every Bahamian. And I'm going to ask my constituents to promote to their neighboring areas, Yamacraw, Fox Hill, Seabreeze, look, tell these people if their member of parliament does not vote in favor of these bills, they either are implying that they're corrupt or they're officially putting down on paper that they condone corruption. And if they want that to be their legacy, fine. And if they want that to be the cause for the uprising and the peaceful revolution, fine.
Let me ask you, you're out there, I used to campaign. I campaigned 3 elections. And to some extent there was some pleasant surprises, but you're in your contact with the average Bahamian in Elizabeth, are people so overwhelmed with their day-to-day survival that they don't have the time or the inclination to absorb the bigger picture? Because my fear is that there's a critical mass scenario happening, okay? And that the kind of message that one wants to get out there, which is at the very fundamental basis, and that is getting involved, understanding the process, et cetera, that it's easier for people to just say, you know what, I can just go and beg my MP or what are you finding?
Bahamians want to be involved. Bahamians want to have a stake, but Bahamians haven't been directed as to how they can do that. The Bahamians haven't been told, okay, this might not suit your personality, but this might. There are options. There is not just one singular way to be involved in our democracy.
But are they what the question?
They
and
are
I agree.
receptive.
That's the question I'm asking.
And I could see it on their face. I can read people. So we come there and they're like, man, I'm just fed up. I'm not interested. I wasn't even planning to vote, to be honest. By the time I tell them about this, I see a little side smile when I talk about the being active and tell them how they can be active. And then, so at the end of it, it makes me feel like hope isn't lost. We still have time to turn this thing around.
Do they know that being involved means just showing up?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling them.
Yeah. I'm not just talking about just showing up to vote.
Some people might have a circle of influence. So if they show up to these public awareness events that we'll have or whatever it is, or or read the emails or whatever, go on my Facebook page and they see what these anti-corruption bills are all about, or what these child protection, whatever issues we're dealing with, if they avail themselves of the information, some people might simply have such an influence. Like I know in Elizabeth Estates, you have people through there who have an influence of tens of, maybe sometimes 100 people. They go out and share this with the community. That's participation right there. I could never pay for that because I ain't gonna get the 100 people to come out. They gotta be the ones to say, look, this is what it is, and break it down for them. And then if they're interested and have the means to go online and research further, then fine.
To piggyback off something Ed had mentioned earlier, based on your conversations with the constituents, what are people most concerned about? What are the top three things people talk about to you in terms of what they're concerned about, what their thoughts are in the future?
I'll give you top four. An MP that's honest and present, which I'll help alleviate. So that's why I'll give you the other three as well. They're concerned about crime, but more so on a national level than anything. They're also concerned about youth unemployment. That's huge. And lack of opportunities. That's huge. And also just the cost of living generally, their labor issues in terms of not understanding the proper process towards being a pensionable and permanent employee. Some people have had issues working for franchise companies that come to the Bahamas and don't offer wages comparable to, regional counterparts. These sorts of issues that we actually can address and say, hey, let's go to the table, see what we can negotiate in terms of the legislative end.
So does your platform include addressing those types of issues?
Well, the platforms I came with were stuff that I thought were fundamental. Anti-corruption, I think you can't go to a government and say, let's fix this and let's fix that until you have a government that you can hold accountable. Without freedom of information, the Auditor General being empowered to do more work, being able to see results and repercussions from there having been found to be failures in, fiscal responsibility or theft and that sort of stuff. How are we gonna?
I wish, sometimes, and like I say, there are a lot of times when we do these shows, or sometimes even when I post something on the internets or the Facebooks, that and I haven't done so in a while because I feel as if, I just feel, it's like a floating around. But now and again, you try to say to yourself, can you say something that would just get people to get it, okay? And the one thing that I think people miss in this country is there's one single element that is lacking dramatically, and that is the element of management, okay? All of these things in kind of similar scenarios happen in entities that we all are involved with, whether it's a church or an organization or a job or whatever the deal is. A home, exactly. Okay, so let's take a home. There's crime in a home if the kid feels that they have to steal money to get food, whatever. There's all these elements. But the thing that makes it work is when things are managed well. If everyone's getting their apportionment, if everyone's getting their shelter, if everyone's getting their security, if everyone's getting their education, all those things seem to work out. And so it seems to me that while we are battling with all these elements, the hub is what we miss. And that hub is management.
Absolutely.
And so because even accountability is an outspring of the hub. In a well-run organization that is managed, the management ensures that there is accountability or is ethics or there is no conflict of interest. All of those things come in a package to help run this entity properly. And this is where I feel we're lacking. And no one seems to, I'm not, present company accepted if you are, no one seems to be focused on that. They seem to be focused on trying to solve these outsprings. But if you don't solve the core.
Well, for me, the core is the management within accountability. That one component as a singular member of parliament, that will be my focus. I can't focus on the management of the country because I don't yet have any group of people who I think are capable enough to manage and that could be elected. Mm-hmm. So I will leave that to those people vying for the government. I'm vying to be a member of the opposition.
Yeah. But and that's again commendable. But we've got to somehow get to a point where, and I don't know how we will, I don't have the answer, where you can recognize people. And this is why this goes back down to the most grassroots level. And I don't say that in the political sense as opposed to democracy from the ground up. If you've got a scenario where Ken is presented to you as your representative, you don't know what Ken's capable of.
He looks like he good for something.
Yeah, but I don't trust him, but don't worry about that. But the reality is you should have the capacity in your constituency to hear from Ken, hear from Erica, hear from, have some sort of, like, for instance, there's a responsibility of your branch or your community to have the right questions to be asking Ken and Erica about what their capacity is to do certain things. So you can choose the type of manager you want, even at your very local level.
Yeah.
But it's hard for that to happen. And I think because if you are less Terneille, you are not beholden, you're not waiting on a political party to give you a nomination, which means you don't have to wait to start work in your community, in your constituency. So you are theoretically at a great advantage because those constituents know you, right? They have a chance to get to know you. Whereas in some constituencies, they still haven't named the nominees, and it's harder for them. So they're kind of just parachuting in there, and the constituents don't know what they're getting.
Because
they're at a disadvantage.
Because the system is they're not at a disadvantage. You know why?
No,
because the system is
are a disadvantage.
No, they're not. Because the reality is they're going to vote for a party. They're just waiting for a name on the blank space.
Right, but I mean, I think that can be changed with a certain level of awareness, though. But I think that awareness and education has to come first to get away from this mentality of, you know what, I don't really care who it is as long as it's.
Well, that's the point I'm making.
Right.
It has to be changed and I'm not just spelling independence, okay? Because I think there can be independence in the party.
Yeah.
Because that's what we have right now, okay? And that's who's winning. I mean, that's just the system. We've got to kind of restructure it, right?
It's the culture, too.
It's
though.
a culture.
Right.
But here's what I'm saying. If you have a scenario where Terneille Burrows decides, okay, philosophically, some of the things that one party versus the other she lines up with, but at the same level she maintains her independence of thought, if there's a structure where she can say, I'm going to run for a particular party, I'm going to present myself to this branch that is comprised of 500-600 people, and I'm going to show them why I'm the capable candidate. Now, the problem we have, going back to your issue about parachuting and is all that, we should have a set election date.
Absolutely.
We should have an independent boundaries commission.
Yeah.
Then you'll know what the deal is, and that independence boundary commission is based on formulas that say if you have X amount of people in a constituency, you've got to, whatever the deal is.
But there's still no excuse that St. Anne's doesn't have a single ratified candidate at this point. There is no excuse. I'm not going to accept.
Well, I
it.
know what the excuse is.
There is none.
No. Do you know? No, it's not an excuse. Do you know why?
I don't care.
Well, I know why. It's because they waited for to change it. It's as simple as that. They waited to fix it. Why is it ironic that the one constituency, right?
I mean, all
that doesn't
parties.
have, and that's what I'm saying. But a party who is having someone to go and campaign didn't want to waste their time campaigning, and they didn't know where it was going to be.
Oh, okay.
They know this is the insidiousness of it. The fact that this is the one constituency that was changed dramatically, right? And Freetown, okay, says the people who are changing these boundaries, because here, watch this now. One party didn't ratify anyone in both constituencies. The party who chose the boundaries.
Right. Who have that control.
Okay? The party that was waiting for it didn't choose it in another. So they do this because they know what they're doing. They're playing with our minds. But that's another story. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back, and we'll talk about how things are going, Miss Terneille Burrows, in your bid for the House of Assembly. We'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Wells-Cox, and our guest is, and we'll talk about that for a second at the end. Our guest is Terneille Burrows. So you're running as an independent. I haven't heard of a lot of independents yet. I mean, I know there are people out there floating around.
If you include Loretta Butler Turner, that would be 10.
Yeah. Okay. So how is that going?
What?
The running as an independent. How is that? What are your numbers? What are your numbers?
I don't know about the numbers, but
I know about the numbers.
I
You gotta know about numbers.
I know how many numbers of people I've met at households and spoken to, so that I'm able to quantify. Right. But I think that, some people say, "Oh, I wasn't even going to open my door for the other parties only because I know you're an independent. I even let you in." Right. That sort of thing. So that makes you think, well, okay, has there been a bit of a shift, and is this shift enough to actually make an impact in the next election, or are people just going to resort to doing the same old? My faith and eternal optimistic side is going to tell me that there might be a chance to do something here.
Yeah.
What constitutes doing something might just be a certain percentage.
Yeah. I think it is, at the end of the day, it is going to be about numbers. It's going to be how, look what happened with Trump. Basically, independents went with Trump. Okay? So at the last minute, they went with Trump. The big issue here is if independent voters continue to vote independent, what is the impact on one or the other party? Right? So let's just say you got 30% of the vote in your constituency. How does that impact either party?
Right. Well,
where do they come from you, and do you win because now that you've taken 30%, it's kind of a runoff type scenario where no one has gotten a clear, maybe 30, 28, that type of thing. So yeah, there's always hope in those type of scenarios, and I'm telling you, you gotta, I mean, it's a difficult thing. How are you handling it? How are you financing it? How does it impact you in your daily life, and is it something that you were able to do at this time in your life?
Well, so far we've raised about $17,000 to be able to allow me to do this full time and the basics with the campaign. I'm still having fun. It's really great getting to meet the people of Elizabeth.
You realize that you're the first candidate on the history of the Bahamas that has uttered a number of what they've raised for election, right?
Oh, I don't know. I like transparency.
No, I'm just telling you. You realize you just did that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, did you realize that, Eric?
Well, yes. I mean, I did realize that's rare. I didn't know it was the first.
I've never heard of it.
Right.
I've never heard of it. I mean, next thing, you'll be telling us where you got it from.
Have you ever heard of it?
I know, right? Actually, I was going to ask you how you're raising the money.
Well, initially I had a what do you call it? A Kickstart? No, an Indiegogo fund to say, hey, the campaign's being launched. We want to do certain things, and that raised about $2,500. People just went online, used their PayPal or credit card. That was November 2015. Really, 15? 15?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
15. Okay. And since then, the website, which was very well done by Greg Colley, we've just had a facility where people can donate online directly through PayPal. So people have been utilizing that, and others have been just giving checks.
Getting 1 million people
like
at $27 each.
I wish. That would be huge.
That would be huge.
What, in terms of demographics, in terms of age, do you feel like you're reaching the more, younger group or older group? What's been the response?
Well, analytics from Facebook can tell me who my main demographic is, and it's people my age. I think it's people who know about my music and activism and stuff like that.
People who don't know how old you are.
Well, a lot of times I go to the houses and they say, "Oh, well, how old are you anyway?" And I say, "Well, how old are you?" And then they tell me, and I'm like, "Well, I'm 36." They're like, "Oh, okay. I thought you were like 26." So that's all right. But then that always lets me segue into, but don't look down on young people, because I've been great since I was young, and this sort of thing.
You have the spiel. Good. Gotta have a spiel. But the thing is, so the first thing is, you've been transparent. You told us you raised $17,000, which of course is peanuts compared to what these guys are going to be putting out on these. Well, I mean, at the constituency level, that's probably putting out about anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 a candidate. I would assume. I'm just basic math,
And you
but it doesn't mean that 17,000 doesn't necessarily translate into less votes than 250,000. I think a lot of it is wasted money.
What are they? Right, and I was going to ask you a question because you've campaigned before.
Mm-hmm.
What do they spend that money on?
Shape,
Okay.
T-shape, relay cotton. Listen, T-shirts. There's a lot in your volunteers because if you have a headquarters, you got to provide sodas and food after the meeting and this and that. You got to have your hats. You got to have your shirts. There's a lot of stuff that's going on.
Posters,
The
or does the
posters.
party pay for those?
The party pays for that. But so
Okay.
when I did the number breakdown, it was numbers that are allocated in terms of resources, right? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's not cheap.
Well, I would say that my biggest donations have been in terms of voluntarism and human collateral. The person, my right-hand man, Ted Forbes, who goes around with me 4 times a week, if I had to pay him for the amount of
You'd be
hours
broke?
that he's put in, yeah, I'd be broke. And then you have people who have donated instruction in golf and Awari African games, and you have LPGA golfer Georgette Roll, who's donated golf lessons on a quarterly basis. Dr. David Sands does the golf lessons. So those sorts of things I could never pay for, but the value in terms of them being able to reach these children and with sports and mind sports that they might have not have access to before is just priceless.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
After the election, and let's say you're not successful, do you plan on continuing to work in the community in Elizabeth, or what are your...
That would depend entirely, again, back to the constituents and to the citizenry on what kind of response I'm getting in terms of participation. If people have showed me that we've laid the groundworks, put out the call, and they've not responded, then I'm not going to waste my time. My time is very precious. But if I've seen in good enough numbers through the votes and through the actions that they have, began, that they actually into this and we could grow this and we could build this over the next however long, then I'll stick around.
You see, and there's a validity to that argument. It's based on what Jeff Floyd was saying the other day. When you present yourself as a candidate, if you're going to be truthful, you present yourself as X. You present yourself as X. So if you win, you will represent based on what you represented to them.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, often what happens is you represent a lie. You say, I'm going to be at your house every week. I can be there all the time. I can be at all the funerals. And you're not.
I'm not going to any funerals. Let me put that out there right now.
See?
I visit people in their homes
Yeah.
when I hear of something. That's it.
It's the number one complaint. When I was campaigning, the number one complaint is, well, I didn't see them around here. Or I ain't been at a funeral. They was in the hospital. This is what, so, do you want to represent that? I don't. I wouldn't.
Right.
Okay, what I want to represent, which I think you're putting forward, is how do I become a part of the process, which you are part of the process of, you the voter, that allows us to grow as a country. Because if we grow as a country, all those things that you want individually, the table is laid or set for those things to accrue. Job opportunities, et cetera, et cetera.
My premise is, because I've sent out opportunities for scholarships, just things I've come across or that people have sent me, even grants for entrepreneurial ventures, auditions, and a few people have said that they've been successful.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, what you're saying is if we want the country to grow, and I understand that, but I don't think that we've ever seen on a constituency level, if we want a constituency to grow, if we wanted one constituency to be the beacon of hope in terms of activism and participation in this country, then let's give it a go. You have to take that chance and go with someone who's willing to guide and lead and facilitate along those ways.
Well, to your point, we had Dionisio on. This is the Independent and DNA week. We're having the PLP week next week.
I was just going to say, you sound a little leaning to one side.
No. We ain't leaning nowhere.
Oh, okay.
Okay? We don't lean.
Dip and fall.
Yeah. We don't lean. What we were saying is that, what I would like to do, what I'd like to see MPs do, is to empower their constituents to be the masters of their own domain. So things like, fixing potholes, street signs, mowing verges, those things should be somehow funded so that constituent groupings or councils do those things.
I mean, unless it's already under the purview of the government Ministry of Works.
Yeah, but the problem
I
is...
want I want my tax dollar to be spent servicing what it's supposed to be spent servicing.
But here's where I'm telling you that changes. And it has to change. Because at the Ministry of Works, that pothole is 899th. At your constituency level, it's number 5. It's the top 5 potholes in your constituency.
Well,
so all you have to do is allocate property taxes or other taxes that you're now spending, allocate a portion of that to the community.
There was a lamp pole, huge, gigantic lamp pole that was leaning over where the children sat in the park on Elizabeth Estates Park. Right?
Right.
Last week.
Right.
That has been there apparently since the hurricane. So when I ask residents, the first thing I do is ask, y'all call anybody? Did you do due diligence? Yes, we did. They say they come in, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Then I step in and say, look, let's do this up on social media. Let's put a post on Facebook, boost it as an ad, ask people to share it, ask people to call.
Right.
Finally get a result. A couple days later, someone shared a video and they fixed it.
But that shouldn't be the process.
I know, but we're not going to put it up ourselves.
But here's the process. The process is that you have a constituency council, that you have resources that are based on allocations of tax dollars through property tax, 10, 15% stay in the community, that you call a contractor to pick it up and pay for it. That's what should happen.
Bring me the bill, Ed.
Okay? That's what should happen because you are the number 1 in your list.
Bring me the legislation.
No, well, first of all, we have legislation. It's called local government. We don't have it as in New Providence. We don't have it in we have it in the Family Islands, but it's not funded and it's not given independence.
Bring me the amendment to the legislation.
Well, I mean, this is what we want to do. But guess what?
But
you
I
want me
agree
to show
with
you
that
something?
idea.
You want me to tell you something?
And I believe in local government on a national scale.
And guess what? You don't even have to wait for them.
That would be magnificent.
You don't even have to wait for them. Do it.
You can fix BPL too?
Well, BPL is a private company or a privately managed company. Let's get that right. But the point I'm making to you is this. Certainly, there are catastrophic scenarios. And and unfortunately, there's lines and lists and all that. But I'm saying to you that as a community, if you have a 6x6 pothole in your road that stays there for months and months and months and gets deeper and deeper and deeper, that's on a long list at the Ministry of Works. For you, it's the only pothole. You can pick up a phone, call a contractor, and have it fixed.
Until this passes.
But you'd be surprised to whether you can get resources from. But now I'll tell you what I view your role as an MP is to push for that type of passage, to push for those type of tax allocations, so that you can do that. That's when you now start to have impact. When
that's
those
why
are
I
things
need to
you're
get
pushing.
in. That's why I was telling you, bring me the bill. What you thought I meant?
Well, I won't bring you the bill. You can write the bill.
You already have all ideas. See, you have to participate.
I have to participate. Anyway, listen, it's always a pleasure having words with you. We have 2 more minutes. I just want to ask this thing, this spoiled ballot campaign. This requires much more than 2 minutes, but what's your thought on that?
I think it's ahead of its time, and I think it needs to have more of a structured potential outcome to be more effective, and there needs to be more public education ahead of time on what that outcome could mean. Yeah. So I think other countries have done it successfully, but maybe their system of government were more, conducive to it.
Yeah, I haven't done the research, so I don't qualify as being able to comment on what other countries have done. I don't think I've seen a scenario where other countries have done it and it has impact, as opposed to just having a number of people spoiling the ballots and saying, okay, we did that. It's like a protest. It's a protest.
Well, I will say this. If you want to protest effectively in Elizabeth, vote for Terneille Burrows. I'm not even joking.
And so, no, I know you're not joking.
That would be the baddest protest ever. And I mean Michael Jackson bad.
Yeah. Do you see the vernacular of the youth? And I'm not even joking. Okay. Listen, Terneille, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Erica.
And we'll see you again, I'm sure. Okay, when I bring the bill. All right, Ken, thanks a lot, my friend. We'll see you on who do we have? We have Mr. Greenslade on Thursday from the DNA. See? We don't lean.